Hi, it's Michelle Stimpson again, and you hopefully have just finished reading I Met Him in the Ladies' Room. I know, I'm still wearing the same clothes. It's a very short book, people. It's not that long. So it's okay that I'm still wearing these same PJs. Listen, I brought a couple of notes this time because I thought there's some things I really want to say now that you finished reading the book that I didn't want to say before you read the book. The first thing is I want to address the question of Josh. Is that his name? Oh my gosh, I'm onto a whole other book right now. But the hint of a love interest. Um, I didn't really intend for this book to be a romance between Carrie and a man. I wanted it to be a book about the relationship between Carrie and Christ that's just starting, and it's extremely exciting and extremely promising for her. And that's the relationship that I really wanted to focus on. I never want a woman or anybody to read my book and say, oh, wow, her falling in love is what caused her to have this wonderful, happy ending, the romance between her and some guy. And I mean, romance is great and all that kind of stuff. But the romance between Carrie and Christ is way more interesting to me as a writer. Thinking about the message of this book than what was happening or what could potentially happen between her and the coworker. So that's one of the reasons why I left that part alone a little bit, because I really don't want the message of Christ to be confused with the message of and I didn't want Carrie to get her relationship with Christ confused with her relationship with a man who's at the church. I want her to know Christ for herself. I want him to reveal himself to her. And then maybe she'll be ready to fall in love with some guy. But she's not even ready at this point to go there, I don't think. And I wouldn't want her to confuse the two relationships, because her relationship with Christ will never end. So that's one of the first things I wanted to address. Let's see, another question, and I'm getting this from some people that I know who read the book. At the end, when she's meeting Christ again for real this time in the restroom, I just like the possibility of all of that. I'm a big Alfred Hitchcock fan, and I like the ambiguous ending, partly in this case because everyone's relationship and everyone's journey with Christ is going to be different. I mean, he's so wonderful, and his relationship with each one of us is so near and dear and so individualized in many ways that I don't want to get I don't want anybody to feel like, okay, well, if I don't do it the way Carrie did it, I must not be doing it right, or anything like that, because that's where Carrie was. I mean, she was like, I'm not quite like Stephanie. I didn't have this big huge moment where I was feeling like, oh my gosh, my whole life has changed in an instant. And she just really wasn't sure if she was even a Christian based on what she had seen in somebody else's life. And so that's one of the reasons that why I left the ending the way that it was, is because, your relationship with Christ is very personal, it's very intimate, it's very romantic in the sense that he's been wooing you since before you were even here, and gave himself for you before you even knew that he had done it. And that's romantic to me. So that is one of the reasons why I left a couple of things open at the end. I just really wanted to think about what it means to give your life to Christ, what that looks like in the life of somebody who wasn't expected to do it. I think a lot of us grew up in churches. I know I did. I grew up in church, and I mean, I was at the altar. Anytime there was prayer offered, I went to the altar. I was made to go to the altar. And of course, I grew up in a Pentecostal church, so once you got down there, you start thinking about all the bad stuff you've done, and then you really would get sorry, and, just all that kind of thing, which is not, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't do this or that and the other. That wasn't the point of this book, I should say. But the thing that I really wanted to think about was, what do you actually believe? And when I think about Carrie and how she came to Christ because she needed something from him. She wanted something from him. She wanted well, she didn't want it from him. She wanted a job for herself. And I think that many of us came to Christ because we had some type of motive, whether it was, I just don't want to spend eternity separated from God, or in hell, or I heard that he could heal you, or I heard that you could get rich if you did this, or I mean, just all these different reasons, many of them self-serving, probably a good 95% of them self-serving, that people come to Christ because I want Jesus to do something for me. And he's not anti doing something for you. I mean, the woman with the issue of blood, when she came to him, she knew that all she had to do was touch the hem of his garment. She had made up in her mind, the Bible says, that if she did that, that she would be healed. And so she came to Jesus not because she loved him, not because she adored him, but because she felt like he could do something for her. And in that faith, he did that something and made her whole. And she absolutely fell in love with him at that point. And so my thought about Carrie and about Christianity and coming to Christ, period, is I know, and I can only speak for myself and Carrie, I guess. Stephanie had a whole different thing going on with her, but I know that I really didn't begin to study the Word and really get into the Word until I was facing a crisis in my marriage, number one. That was my first inclination that there was something really powerful behind all these things I had learned growing up. But I honestly began to just stay in the Word when I found out that it was God's will for me to not be broke all the time, financially broke. And so I honestly can say that I got into the Word because I heard that you didn't have to be broke. And actually, you could be extremely rich if you got in the Word and you did A, B, C, and D, and you stopped doing this. And I believe that Christ knew my motives were very self-seeking, very self-serving. But because he's so good, he knew that if I got in his Word and if I sought him, through seeking the Word, he is life. The Word is alive. You can't spend time in the Word and not be transformed, no matter what your motives are. Once you get in there and you're really allowing the Holy Spirit to speak to you through that Word, you're going to change. He's so good that he knows if you get a taste of him, even if you came to the restaurant for the wrong reason, you're going to find out that that's good, and you will be back for the real meal, which is the love of Christ, period. And so that's where I believe Carrie is going. She came to him for all the wrong reasons, but because she did, that was all part of his plan anyway. I mean, he loves her. He's been wooing her. He's actually protected her from her parents' point of view for many, many years because he knew this day was coming. So that's my thought about what's going on with her. Now, the funny thing about this book was Stephanie and Ricardo to me. I didn't really know if I wanted to paint him as the bad guy so much. I don't really know that he's even a bad guy so much as he is a realist. He's just a realist. Listen, you need a job. You got a job. You can't turn that paperwork in like that. You're going to look crazy if you turn that work in like that. Go online and buy a paper. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, that's kind of the realist that you would even hear from believers saying, put your faith aside. You got to do what you got to do right now, that kind of thing. And so I didn't really want to paint him as a bad guy, but he turned into one by the time the book was over. But I'm just saying, there were kind of little hints that there was something going on with him the whole time anyway. I don't even know how Stephanie ended up with him, Sometimes you have a really good person just ended up with this guy. And thank Jesus she didn't end up with Ricardo, because that would have been a whole hot mess, right? But when I think about how Carrie responded to Ricardo's mean words about Jesus and mean words about the church, I thought, you know what? She already was kind of getting there from the beginning. So it was kind of neat to see her respond to his thoughts. And it was really neat for me to think about, okay, so what does Carrie actually believe? She didn't even know what she really believed throughout most of the book. Did she really believe that, a man died on a cross 2,000 years ago, and because he died, now you're okay with Christ, and now you're okay with God, and there was a donkey that talked to somebody? I mean, are you serious? This is not realistic, Carrie. And that's the thing about our faith. It's not practical. It's not realistic. It is not something that you can explain. It's not I mean, it's powerful. It's beyond natural. It's supernatural. And I really think that Ricardo's thoughts are not very far from some who profess to be believers. I mean, you cannot break spirituality down to practicality. Don't reduce it to practicality. It's powerful. It's beyond anything that you can write down on a sheet of paper or put in a calculator and spit out the answer. So anyway, let me see what else I wanted to say. I think that's it. If you would like to have a bit of a conversation about it, join me on Facebook, if you will. Share any of your comments, and feel free to email me. I hope that you certainly enjoyed this book, and that you were blessed by this book, and that it made you think. You know, am I like Carrie? Like, do people not even know I'm a believer? Am I like this undercover believer? I only do it on Sundays, and I really don't care that people know about it throughout the week. That was a huge, huge piece for me when Carrie said that about how she was going to try to keep it undercover because she didn't want to be treated differently. Well, that's not how it works, people. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you were blessed, and I hope it made you think about, you know, where you stand, whether you're a believer or not. Is this a book that spoke to you in some way? God bless you. Happy reading, and Christ be glorified in your life.